Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
Welcome, folks. Welcome, folks. Really happy you could all join me today for the Customer Experience webinar. My name is Sean. I'm a Partner Success Manager here at Plug and Play, and I'll be your host today. And we have some really good content lined up for you today, so let's just get into it. The agenda here, we'll have some opening remarks, and then we're going to jump straight into the panel where we have some excellent guests. And then afterwards, we'll have some startup presentations from those panel members. Okay. All right, so this time I would invite all my panel members to turn your video and audio on. We're gonna just get right into it here, but if you have any questions for the group, we're going to try to make time for audience Q&A at the end. So please feel free to throw those in. And yeah, let's get started. I guess quick introductions should be in order first. So we'd like to go around. Noel, maybe just starting with you.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Noelle McEntee. I am the Marketing Director here at ASTEYA. We're an insurtech company working to make insurance more accessible.
Thank you. And Leonard, maybe next.
Hi, folks. I'm Leonard Navarro, VP of Business Development at Nametag. We focus on digital identity authentication. So think about us as sort of the next step. Once we get rid of passwords in 2FA, we're there to authenticate your users and customers in a more efficient way.
Thanks, Leonard. And Arvind?
Hi, I'm Arvind from Dubai. I'm the founder of Aura, which is an embedded insurance platform building for Middle East and North Africa.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I think first, I'd like to start broad. And I think there's a lot of different perspectives on what customer experience can be. And Leonard, I'd like to maybe ask you this first question. Ideally, what do you think the insurance experience of the future looks like for consumers, and how might the industry eventually arrive there? And again, Leonard, we'd love to start with you, but then open it up.
Yeah, so I think if you sort of bucket your consumers into 4 different sections, so onboarding, sign up, retention, and quoting, you have all these levers you can pull. And at the end of the day, I think because of inflation and because of the way the economy is responding, the insurance companies are going to get squeezed on how much money they're going to want to spend, and the consumers are getting smarter and smarter. So that dollar price tag is sort of a moving target we're trying to track. I think the easiest things to do, aside from making your products more cost effective and efficient, it's probably around customer support and customer service, making that experience much easier when people need to speak to someone. And there are things like chatbots and all kinds of new advancements, which I think are doing a pretty good job, but definitely around easing up of any of the friction and customer support cases is going to make people a lot more secure. And also, if we're able to better authenticate who we're dealing with, who we're sending quotes to, cutting out that fraud risk is also going to be able to drive your costs down as an organization. So I think that's sort of where people are going to start focusing, just given the economy and inflation right now.
Okay, and absolutely, you guys at Nametag would know that very well. Noelle, maybe you next.
Absolutely. I think one of the main things is that people are accustomed to being able to do things on the go, on their phone. It's an extension of our bodies at this point. And so ensuring that we're being thoughtful in terms of building digital first and not just taking things that were on paper and making it an e-app, but really thinking about the digital consumer and making sure that things are built in a way that we would order groceries, if you will, and making things making things seamless where you don't have to jump on the phone with someone. So we're really trying hard to get granular in our data to ensure that we're not overcharging, and also be thoughtful in terms of how do we make this as seamless as it would be to order a coffee or a car.
Right. Okay. And Arvind?
I guess for sort of the one word that I'd like to state is connected. I think insurers should be more connected to various non-insurance providers, like how sort of open banking is advanced. It should be underwriting based on connected devices such as wearables, or financial underwriting based on open banking data. And insurance claims also need to sort of advance in the sense that insurance is not anymore about just making good the loss. It's about how you deliver that claim. For example, something as simple as a parametric insurance that triggers lounge access when there is a flight delay, and that's the sort of way insurance experience needs to be delivered, rather than saying that submit these forms and then we will reimburse or we will make good whatever that you've lost.
Absolutely. I think that also segues well into the next question about mass marketing, which I think is still used, but we're shying away from. And then the more targeted, more specific customer experience and targeting that we see now. Digital has brought sort of a democratization of access to insurance materials, financial materials to consumers. And I think as one of the many results, and for other reasons, of course, too, these niche insurance products have just been more able to target and then sustainably serve more niche customers. So, and Arvind, if we could just keep going with you, could you just speak to that importance of a more targeted, more specific customer experience versus the old model, which of course is still heavily used, of that mass marketing?
Sure. So I'd like to obviously share, from the experience that I've had in this region, where insurance penetration is still quite low, and obviously the insurance industry is still developing. Obviously hyper personalization has sort of taken over e-commerce, but I would say that insurers need to sort of step back and do personalization, firstly, and that means that sort of a more nuanced approach in terms of serving their customers. One simple thing that I could say is in terms of claims, because that's where the most distress is by the customer. You would find it very rare, in fact, in this region where, you would have various sort of call center agents who speak the different languages that are prevalent in this region, and thereby creating that low trust with consumers, because they're not able to sort of express at that time of distress that they need to file for this claim, or that they're not able to understand what the claims agent is saying. And at the same time, I would also say that personalization could be achieved by means of embedded insurance. That is, you do offer contextually relevant products more based on the items in the cart or based on the transaction that the consumer is doing, rather than saying that this is a one size fits all insurance product, which ultimately leads to people with good insurance behaviors sort of subsidizing for the people who have sort of more reckless insurance behavior.
Yeah, thank you. And Leonard or Noel, I would love to open that up to you now.
Go ahead. Okay. This is actually a really interesting part in sort of the marketing process around not only insurance, but a lot of different verticals. There's a moment when people sign up for insurance, which often just gets passed over entirely, which does not get passed over in other verticals. And that's where you've bought that car, you're trying to sign up, you don't take that moment to do the research. So you're missing a key piece, and that's something called absolute value. So that's the difference between I've got policy A and I've got policy B. What are the key factors that determine which one is better for me? And that absolute value, I mean, this even goes into actual productization of different sort of, products you'll find at Walmart. If there's only one thing you're looking at, you can't possibly quantitatively look at the value of it next to something else. So I think that's, a big piece of the way marketing needs to sort of change how they're thinking about products and how their products compare to other products in their market. The other item is the big data thing. Big data being used for marketing, fantastic. But me as a 30-something, I'm not the same as my neighbor who's also a 30-something living in New York. So there are other ways that big data can focus on the individual without having to cast that big net. And I think we've already seen some successes there. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about Lemonade, the elephant in the room, but they do a good job of really focusing on the individual. And that starts that flow. That's why they're so effective at getting people to buy right then without going to shop around.
Absolutely agreed. And Noelle, if you have any thoughts there, would love to hear from you too.
Yeah, of course. I think someone mentioned the democratization of insurance in general, and that so many types of insurance are now becoming more accessible to people of various walks of life. And I think one thing that we're trying really hard to do is to make things approachable. I think that this industry in general has been, and no offense to anyone, but like a lot of cis white men that are heterosexual, and that's not who our audience is in the world anymore. And it's been great that we've done a lot of work in terms of being able to build the industry to where it is, but it also means that it's time for us to open that up and make sure it's accessible to others. So there's one thing we talk a lot about is how do we use language that is more layman's terms in terms of defining what a premium might be. Like that is something that if you've not necessarily had the luxury of getting in the past, of maybe you were on Medicare, Medicaid, or there's something there in terms of let's define things in terms and words that people understand. And I think that that's what's really exciting, is that we're meeting people on a level that feels accessible to them and giving them the option to make choices for themselves. So, yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think accessibility is still very much an issue that needs to be addressed. So I'm glad you touched on that. And Noelle, I'd love to stay with you here. At ASTEYA, I think you've done a really great job at identifying sort of the evolving trends in the consumer profile of insurance. What would you say the modern worker looks like now, and how have those needs evolved from even just 10 to 20 years ago?
Well, I think most of us would be able to say that the amount of freelancers that are out there now has just boomed, right? 20 years ago, anyone that was working for themselves was a total rock star and like very impressive. All freelancers are as well, but there's luckily more products that are available to them to be able to move forward with their business and their job, right? So we have the future of work. It's upon us. We know there about the Great Resignation recently, and whether that was part of just the pandemic or what needed to happen in general for people and workers to really claim what they need in their life as employees. But what comes with that is like the future of benefits as well. And so at ASTEYA, we think a lot about making sure that our products are evolving with the times. So for example, our standard DI product, you have to have the same sort of job to be able to be insured in that. But if you're an Uber driver, but you also might do DoorDash or you might drive a taxi, we look at that as the same sort of job title to ensure that you're then able to insure all of your income, not just a portion of one of your jobs. So being creative in terms of how you think about products and positioning is so important, because workers aren't what they were 10, 20 years ago. And so how do we make sure that whatever we're creating and producing is accessible to the modern day individual?
You're right. That messaging and communication is so important. Yeah. Would like to talk about mobile. I think we're probably all well aware of the PwC reports that come out on consumers every year. In this last one, 41% of respondents said that they shop either daily or weekly via mobile or smartphone. And if you compare those figures to just a few years ago, six months ago, it was just 39%, 6 months before, excuse me. And then 5 years before that, it was just 12%, which is, I think, quite shocking to me. But would love to ask you guys if you could just speak to the importance of mobile as it relates to buying insurance today. And Arvind, I would love to start with you. I think Aura is doing good work there.
Sure. Mobile-based insurance or mobile buying insurance has obviously been there for a while. Like, if you could take the example of WeSure that's being offered by WeChat in China, has got about 55 million active users and about 25 million policies. And now if you go to India, WhatsApp has started offering insurance, health insurance via its platform. So obviously the penetration, the reason why we built Aura is because there are about 345 million smartphone users in the Middle East. And we wanted to find a way to reach them. And there's no other better way than obviously reaching them through mobile. Mobile-based distribution obviously gives you two advantages. One is it's low cost, and obviously it's easier to reach the client. Number two is you can also leverage on a lot of the data that that they've got in order to price and or create better sort of products that are more relevant to them. Again, for example, telematics based on driving behavior. Or number two, wearables, or sort of these health apps based on what Samsung Health or Apple Health have, and that actually gives a better sort of pricing than a one-size-fits-all approach.
Agreed. Leonard, maybe if you could touch on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're mobile first for a couple of reasons. I think sort of the macro thought is mobile devices are just better nowadays. They're faster, they're smarter, they have more computing power, and they also have built-in security features now. So if you're thinking about the way you sign in with your face or your biometric thumbprint, all those kinds of aspects, just the ability that companies now have to leverage what Apple and Android are using is huge. So I think we're starting to see a little bit more of that, even to the extent that, for instance, pre-pandemic, Apple deployed something called an app clip. So just by scanning a QR code or clicking a mobile link, you can go into an app flow without ever downloading a full app. So I think just, again, trying to remove friction, trying to create a better experience, those are the kinds of things companies are going to start looking into. We're app first entirely, but we make sure that if you're doing something from a security or authentication point of view, so you can know your customer a little bit better, they're using some security features on their phone. And I think just the other reason is that as phones become more integrated into how we spend money, how we sign things, how we access new accounts, you're already doing so much, to Noel's point. Like, you're using your phone to buy all kinds of things. So soon you will be buying everything using your phone. It just makes more sense. Cash is not the main way people want to transact, nor is any other form currently. And I think we can probably look, you're seeing it a bit with the Twitter conversation. Can they turn Twitter into a transaction platform? I think everyone will be looking for easier ways to transact, and mobile is making that easier. And that's not even us developing it. That's Apple and Android taking the steps to do that for us.
I absolutely agree. The Twitter conversation is an interesting one to track. I think that one has implications, but broadly for sure.
Yeah.
And before I move on, Noel, definitely, if you have any thoughts on mobile, would love to hear them.
My only thought is, and if you haven't read this book, it's great. It's Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. And in the beginning of it, he talks about our attention spans. And apparently college students have the attention span of about 65 seconds. That's when they track their computer and they go from thing to thing to thing. And before we feel all superior, ours as working adults is about 3 minutes. So I think my thought is there is, it's needed now, but as we look forward in terms of how we're going to continue growing within the insurance space, it's not an option to not be mobile first.
Okay, I love it. And Stolen Focus, I'll have to check that one out. Leonard, if you could talk about the current landscape of internet profiles and the sign-in process and any change that you think needs to take place, I think you'd be well positioned to speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple different entry points that I think, all of our customers are looking for in terms of the experience, and particularly the security ones, which is, if you can't tell, that's sort of where we focus on Nametag, is the authentication portion. But when customers have to open an account, they're trying to communicate with the company, knowing a password and a username is not the same as knowing the individual. Having their two-factor authentication set up is not the same as knowing the individual. So focusing on their actual identity and having that be tied to their device or their account when they log in is going to become more of what people do. You're already doing it with your phones and your finger scan on your laptop now. But I think the key, and this is where I think particularly small to medium-sized businesses and startups are going to struggle, is because when you call up that customer support person, and this is across industries, but particularly in insurance, and let's say you're trying to change your account or change a beneficiary or submit a claim, if they don't know who you are on the end of that line, that is rife for fraud. And that's where companies are really going to struggle. So when we think about, account recovery, account onboarding, step-up authorization, maybe upgrading your account, we really always go back to, does the customer experience or customer support person know who's on the other end of that phone? And if they can guarantee, they get the check from us saying we validated this person's identity, then that makes the entire experience much better, much easier, much more efficient, and hopefully contributes to that sort of value that I think all these companies want to bring. And again, passwords are not going to be around forever. We're seeing everyone come up with a new bell and whistle, but we really think that identity is going to be the way that you're able to open your new account, tie it to the secure enclave of your phone, not have to download an app, and be able to transact and access your account really easily just using your face or a thumbprint or something like that.
You're a man after my own heart. I think passwords are just absolutely outdated. I
They're
can't.
horrible, and they're getting worse. And I think the other point is that there are all these companies coming up with new systems and new bells and whistles, but the fraud and the monetary loss from fraud is just going up and up and up. So something's not working. And a bunch of different people are trying to figure that out.
Right. There's so much that goes on in what I think a lot of people perceive as just a thin layer in a larger process. Absolutely. Arvind, would love to ask you this question. With Aura doing work in embedded, want to hear your thoughts on what new channels of communication you think will be important for reaching future audiences who we now know are more heavily on mobile.
So I guess the beauty about embedded insurance is that you don't have to think about insurance because insurance has, obviously a very, very negative connotation because you're thinking about negative outcomes, you're thinking about probabilities, and then, obviously that puts you off, and ultimately and that leads to sort of a protection gap, especially in our region where, the penetration is quite low, and there are also sort of cultural barriers because some of the religious views are not too sort of friendly towards insurance. We see more so in this region, especially with life insurance and disability insurance having being at 0.7% penetration. So we said that the only way to sort of get customers to basically buy insurance more easily is to sort of embed it with one of their routine service providers so that they're not really thinking about insurance, but they're doing their routine transaction and it's just one ticket checkout, or it comes along with the transaction and they're ultimately sort of covered. And we've been quite successful in the sense that we cover the migrant workers whenever they remit money back home to the Indian subcontinent. They get insurance at checkout, and if anything happens to them, their families are taken care of because of this one button at checkout. So these are the sort of various ways in which we're trying to get customers to basically get protected, without really having to fill up long forms or answer questionnaires or any of those sort of things, but just single click protection.
Yeah, spot on. I know a number of corporate partners here at Plug and Play are really looking into embedded and how to make that work for their company. Speaking of, I think, Arvind, let's stay with you. Where do you think the biggest divides are between what customers are expecting today and then what their insurance experience and what companies are actually delivering right now?
So I guess, I would say for our region, it's obviously the expectations are quite high because, the user experience in terms of, whether it's e-commerce or, grocery shopping, or, even if it's like ordering food, there have been high standards that have been achieved, almost as much as North America or Europe. But, in terms of insurance, the industry is nowhere close to that. One is, I would say, on the claim side. I mean, not on the claims, but even if you were to change your policy, that's cancel a policy or add a new address, there are no self-service mechanisms. Like you could obviously add to basket another sort of order, but you can't do that for your own policy. You'll have to call up an agent, or you'll have to go physically to the office of the insurance company and fill out a form, give out reasons as to why you shifted your house, or to do all of those sort of things. So there is a pretty big divide in terms of this, and even in terms of insurance buying. It takes on an average about 32 clicks to get an insurance, a car insurance product here, and beyond that, there is also even approval for that. So if you compare this with sort of one-click checkout that sort of Amazon offers, obviously, which people are used to. There is sort of disappointment when it comes to both insurance purchasing as well as on the claim side.
Absolutely. And Noel, any thoughts around customer expectations today, insurance experience, reality now?
Yes, I mean, I think we're all quite aware that instant gratification is very prevalent. Just going back to how easy it is to buy something either through Instagram and have it show it up the next day or what have you. And I think that what's tricky is, especially in a world where we're not great at doing things for our future selves, such as saving money, as much as we all would love to be better at it, I think sometimes it's not something we're able to do because that positive utility isn't happening right away. So if I buy a book, the seller's getting something, I'm getting something right away. When I'm buying insurance, there's nothing's happening until I file a claim, right? That peace of mind is great, but it's not something I think about every day. And so I think that there's a lot there in terms of how we design products like with regards to making sure people realize that this is something that will help them in the future. And that again goes back to education and making sure people understand what they're buying. And within the disability insurance space, I mean, life insurance is great, but that's for the people you love. But DI is not just for the people you love, it's for you as well. But those worst case scenarios are hard to think about. So we go back and forth of making sure that we're trying to actually deliver value in the interim before, unfortunately, and hopefully you don't have to file a claim. But again, it's a hard concept because we want things right away when we're spending money. So we're working on that one. And hopefully we all get better at saving and thinking about our future selves.
Yep, absolutely. That has almost plagued the customer experience of all industries. And Leonard, definitely interested in hearing your thoughts before we jump into the audience Q&A here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are spot on. I think we're in a really weird time coming out of pandemic and quarantine, and people are traveling and getting back to work. I think to see what's coming up next, we do have to look back. And pre-pandemic, there were sort of two entry points. There's when you signed up for whatever form of insurance and you sort of didn't want to speak to anyone, maybe a broker over email, maybe a short conversation on the phone, but you wanted to do it digitally. Now, when something happens, you really want to speak to someone and you want it taken care of quickly. I'm not quite sure where we go next, because during the pandemic, I think it was Everest did a study where, something like 30% of Americans were changing multiple forms of insurance because they had the time to sit on the phone and call and see what was really going on. Now that people aren't going to have that time to the same degree, I'm not quite sure what's next. So does that mean just having more people available to pick up the phone? Does that mean creating the digital tools to be able to service your customers in a faster, more efficient way? I think we've learned a lot, though, that insurance companies were doing pretty well just knowing that people didn't want to call up and deal with changing or canceling or doing all that. That sort of went out the window during the pandemic. So I think it remains to be seen what's next, but I think it's really going to focus on making sure you have the workforce to be able to handle people one-on-one, either digitally or over the phone.
It's a good point. I think preferences shifting. I thought they were happening fast in the last 10 years, the last 2-3 years, much faster.
Yeah.
Okay, would love to touch on these audience Q&A questions before we wrap up here. We have one from, oh no, I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry, Mrinalenu. Malini. Um, what approach would you suggest to improve consumer education on products, considering the complexity in the insurance language? And would love to open this up to anyone here.
Just off the top of my head, I think it does go back to being able to relate your products very simplistically to create a known value related to other bells and whistles. So we always think about it as like Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite. What am I buying? Am I buying the top level Cadillac version, or am I getting the watered down version? Some people want to know that, and it's fair to understand what you're getting. So I think there is a level of transparency, even though they're complex tools or complex pieces of a policy. Stack rank them next to each other so people can tell what your mid tier is from your top tier and vice versa. That's sort of my first thought.
Yeah, agreed.
Just jumping on that, I think one thing we try to do is when we either work with agents or even direct to consumer, it's trying to build and paint a picture and to give examples of what the product has done for people in those worst case scenarios. And so I think that a lot of times we forget that we talk a lot about B2B and B2C, and like at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we have to speak to people in a way that's really gonna like make them think of themselves or their family or their loved ones. And so the more specific you can get while staying compliant, which my compliance team loves me, it's because I'm always like, well, that's not like getting to the juice of it, the heart of it. Like I want people to really fully understand, and it's hard in insurance, but my thought is always just, can you create marketing or creative or content or have a conversation around something that's real and not speak in the abstract as much? Because I get the abstract, it helps us, it keeps us out of trouble. But at the same time, especially as the insurance space is becoming more democratized and more people have access to products that they never had. Their parents didn't have DI or life insurance, so they're not accustomed to hearing about those things. How do we paint a picture so that they can understand it and feel really confident in what they're buying, and then giving that language to an agent so they're solution selling, not just selling.
Agreed. That language, so important, so important. Leonard, it looks like there is a question for you in particular from Bernard Gerwell at American National. And he's curious if you view personal identity validation as a part of a broader effort for consumers to own and monetize their personal data. How do you think that could happen?
Yeah, so the first part, I think it's more about you giving users the ability to control their privacy and consent for what information they're sharing. So if you sign up for a new account and they want to see your passport, there are ways which you can decide what information on that passport are you going to share, or in any government ID or form of record. So I think users, empowering them to have consent and know what they're sharing. Oh, and by the way, when I leave my insurance, I want to be able to revoke that information and know that there are levels of PII which are mine, even though the company might have things they need to hang on to for X amount of time. On the monetization part, that's very interesting. And I don't think there's a lot of movement right now in mass community of people trying to monetize their data to get maybe better rates or something like that. There needs to be some sort of value that comes out of it. We are seeing identity stuff trying to be monetized when it comes to the metaverse whole idea, which Lord knows what's going to happen there. But for people to be able to go into a quote unquote neutral territory with their identity factors and maybe team up with people and say, hey, we actually have a bit of a confluence here of people who are looking for the same thing, thinking about the same thing, who's going to come try and sell us a good deal. I think that could happen in the metaverse in a really cool way. I don't know how it's going to happen in real life because, again, we're inundated with choices. So maybe if we can focus on driving down costs in some way, people will band together. But currently, there's not enough data retention on our cell phones or on our digital tools to be able to really band together. But I think it's a great idea. And I think we're going to see more of that sort of communal action, particularly in the United States.
Agreed. I think a proper tool set and strength in numbers will be important there moving forward. And that is, as I see the slides come up here, just about time. Really great to have you guys. Thank you again. It's an honor to speak with you and have you here today.
Thank
All right.
you.
So, of course, we are going to jump into our startup presentations now. Just quick housekeeping. Please submit any questions using the Q&A at the bottom of your window. There will be a brief Q&A period after the presentations. Feel free to also use the chat for general questions or comments. And if you are not presenting, please remain muted. Okay. So first up, we have Aura. Arvind, if you wouldn't mind taking over.
Sure. Thanks. So, sorry, can you see my screen?
That's perfect. Yep.
Excellent. Hello, I'm Arvind. I'm the founder of Aura. We do insurance as a service. So the problem today is that 1 in 5 people would rather slam their hand in a car door than look for car insurance. That's how painful the insurance buying process is. Insurance today is just onerous and lengthy. There is a lack of customer awareness. The premiums offered are expensive, and the products offered by insurers are rigid. Well, what did all of this lead to? A dismally low insurance penetration in our region of 1.9% as compared to a global average of 6.1%. That's less than a third of the world average. Well, we as Aura want to help customers buy insurance within their 8-second online attention span. And we're doing this by creating a middleware API solution that connects online sellers with insurance providers to integrate insurance seamlessly into the checkout process to sell bite-sized and on-demand policies. So how could this look like? Imagine insuring your mobile just to check out, or just the cab ride to the airport, or subscribing to life insurance over text, or buying home insurance while buying furniture. Our value proposition for partners that we create additional revenue streams, fully tailor-made products with no upfront and no fixed cost, and fully plug and play. For the customer, it's single-click protection, it's contextually relevant, it's affordable, and it helps them close the protection gap. And for the insurer, it's a new product line. It generates alternative distribution channels as well as additional premiums, and ultimately leads to increased insurance penetration. Well, the opportunity is huge. It's about $3 trillion globally in terms of pure embedded insurance. In our target market, which is Middle East and North Africa, it's about $2.7 billion, and we're looking to capture about 5% of it by 2026. In terms of the landscape, we've got digital agents that work with one single insurance company to distribute their products, and we've got aggregators that are basically price comparison websites. The both of them are more about reselling the insurance company's products, and they sort of interact with the customer when they're looking for insurance. We as Aura, we are a bespoke product creator. We work with reinsurers to design different products that could be offered at checkout and that are contextually relevant, as well as we interact with customers during their routine service or during their routine transactions, thereby have more sort of touch points in terms of interaction and therefore a higher chance of conversion. The advantage of Aura is that we provide a differentiated insurance product. Those are bite-sized products that we design with reinsurers with instant issuance via our API connectivity, which are embedded within the routine transactions. So it's one-click protection and no long forms, and they're contextually relevant. That is, they're relevant to the particular transaction or service. Our customer acquisition strategy consists of going after large partners. These are large and strategic entities such as e-commerce companies, banks, telcos, fintech wallets, basically any entity that has a large customer base or large sets of data to partner with them to sell insurance. We want to go after products that have low or almost nil penetration, such as life, disability, extended warranty, or renters insurance. We want to go to underserved markets, that are the markets that have the right infrastructure, such as high e-commerce penetration, high mobile data penetration, but low insurance penetration. So we're sort of looking at UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. And ultimately, we want to capture market share by getting to all of these consumers via all these alternative channels. Our product market fit consists of 6 different products that have been configured on our platform, right from extended warranty, tire insurance, excess waiver, life insurance, personal accident. And we are live with about 6 large partners with Enoch, which is owned by the Dubai government and the largest fuel sort of network here in Dubai. We partner with them to sell extended warranty, and Policy Bazaar, who are the world's largest insurance marketplace. We partner with them to sell bite-sized insurance at checkout. Additionally, we are going live with 5 different products, remitters insurance, device protection, critical illness, pet insurance, startup shield. And we're also partnering with 5 other large entities by Q2 of this year, including 2 Dubai government entities, and as well as the national oil company in Oman, to basically sell bite-sized insurance from all of their fuel stations. So our business model is we take 5% transaction fees per API call. So whenever an insurance product is bought via API, we take a small percentage of it for building the rails between the insurer and the partner. And this is sort of our revenue model. So sort of deep diving into our flagship product, we partnered with the Dubai government entity, Enoch, in order to sell extended warranty insurance for all the cars here. So the potential is there were about 3.24 million cars registered in the UAE, and of which about 50% don't have any warranties. But we are serving all of these sort of cars via the 47 locations across Dubai and the Northern Emirates that currently serve about 150,000 cars a month. So all of these cars can basically come to us, and they're offered extended warranty at checkout, and we have very, very high conversions there. Our backers include Startup Bootcamp. We were part of the program back in 2020. So Visa, DIFC, and a local bank, Mashreq Bank, have all invested in us. Our seed round was led by Global Founders Capital, VentureSouk, and Aditum, and we're also part of the Microsoft for Startups program here for Middle East and North Africa. The team consists of me and my dad. So as you can imagine, we both go back a long way. I handle growth strategy, tech, and product development. He handles reinsurance operations and finance. I used to be a reinsurance broker, and I'm a chartered insurer as well. He used to head one of the largest local insurers here in the UAE, and has got about 30 years of experience. So between the two of us, we've been across the entire value chain of insurance, right from being a reinsurer to an insurer to a reinsurer to a reinsurance broker to an insurer to a direct broker, and finally as the buyer of insurance. So we've seen the entire value chain, and we know where the gaps are, and that's what we're trying to solve for. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. We have one question here. Just curious about what customers want out of their mobile experience, and if there are any misconceptions there.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, John?
Yeah, if there are any common misconceptions around what consumers want out of their mobile experience.
So all of our products are offered optionally at checkout, where we've got a simple sort of language in terms of if we're offering device protection, we'd say that you can protect your phone for an additional sort of $50 against accidental damage and liquid damage. So we try and keep the messaging very, very simple. And because of the regulatory constraints here in terms of you can't have an opt-out, it has to be an active opt-in by the customer, to buy the insurance. We've also kept it purely as the customer's choice, along with simple messaging, so that there is no ambiguity in terms of what the customer is buying.
Of course. All right, Arvind, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Next up, we have Noel with ASTEYA.
ASTEYA is a income insurance platform. We're an insurtech company, and the goal is to make income insurance available to anyone, regardless of your profession, income, bracket, or gender. The idea of income insurance is technically disability insurance, but the same way we are not calling life insurance death insurance, we are calling income insurance protection of your income. If you can't work, but you're still here, you deserve to be able to make ends meet and provide for yourself and your family. So what are we doing and why? So income insurance has been around for years, disability insurance, but 1 of 4 people are going to not be able to work due to wellness complications at some point during retirement. if you think about it, in many ways, we're over-prepared for death and under-prepared for an injury. If you weren't be able to work, not being able to pay bills or what have you, you'd be really struggling because if not you per se, but many people are, living paycheck to paycheck. And if you look at the stats, the reason that a lot of people foreclose on their homes is because of medical bills, either because they're underinsured due to health insurance, or also they just have some sort of medical disability. So the idea of having income insurance is vital as well, because 42% of people are 4 times more likely to have an injury or health complications than they are to die in their working years. So again, if you look at the industry, a ton of people have life insurance, but not as many people have it for themselves. And why is that? Well, for a long time, income insurance was sold. It took about 30 to 60 to 90 days, and you had to do it through a broker or an agent. And it was just not an easy process. There was either blood work involved, or again, there was that time period of not being able to just do it seamlessly. And here at ASTEYA, we're working to make it a much more seamless process. So we launched in 2019, but our sister company, IDU, which is International Disability Underwriters, has been around for more than 30 years. So we have the legs and the knowledge of an old company, but with the freshness and excitement and accessibility of being a new insurtech company. We're licensed in 44 plus states. Our policies are issued by the best, they're A-rated companies, and we have raised more than 10 million to date. So we're just getting started. Why are our products better than those on the market? Well, going back to our conversations before about mobility and accessibility and just ease, we work really hard to make sure things are easy for people the whole process is easy. You're not printing things out, you're not jumping on the phone, you're going through the process without, just as easily as you are ordering food on your phone. And we feel like that's helping us differentiate ourselves in many ways. But again, I think the biggest opportunity is the fact that this is such a needed product. People don't realize that if you do have some sort of disability, your Social Security disability insurance is only probably going to give you about $1,200 per month. And even on that, about 4.7% of the population is qualifying for this. So if you aren't able to work for some reason, do you feel like that $1,200 is actually going to cover your needs? Beyond that, there's a ton of people that are getting disabilities year over year. We're also living longer, which is great, but to that point, we're also not taking care of our health as much. So there's a lot more people getting disabilities. And our products, although they are the concept again of income insurance is not new. What we're doing is trying to make them more accessible. So a lot of our products are started at like $8 or $6 per month. So something that anyone hopefully could be able to afford. We're not just targeting the doctors and lawyers of the world anymore. Anyone in the gig economy to the freelancer to what have you will hopefully be able to afford these products. And the two are either a monthly benefit or a lump sum benefit. Feel free to check out our website, asteya.world, to learn more, or shoot me a message.
Thank you very much, Noelle. Sorry, I was struggling to find the mute button there. Would love to address Sarah's question here. And it's, why is disability income insurance so expensive? Being in the industry and knowing the importance of this line of insurance, I recently shopped around for it myself and was so surprised at the price. I didn't end up buying anything because I didn't feel like it was worth the cost.
Well, I'd love to learn more about where you were shopping. Again, I think that one thing to consider is that women are actually generally charged more for income insurance, and that's something that we are working hard to do to ensure that our rates are equal. Not all of our products are equal, but it is something we're working hard to do. So definitely feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to direct you in that way. But again, I think it comes back to the old school way of how we've been pricing things. And we're trying hard to come up with products that allow people to get what they need regardless of their income. So as I mentioned before, our products started at $6 or $8 a month. A lot of times your background might influence that in terms of health, but we also offer products that if you have a pre-existing condition, we can also cover those as well. So there's a lot there. I'd have to know the specifics to understand a bit more, but I'm happy to chat with you and answer those.
Thank you very much, Noelle. And if you're interested, if you're in the audience and you're interested in connecting, please just respond to the poll. I will also put my email up at the very end, and you can just shoot me a note and I'll be happy to connect you. Again, Noelle, thank you so much for joining us with such late notice.
Of course.
Next up, we have Leonard with Nametag. Leonard, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, here we go.
Looks great.
Slide. Yep. So we're Nametag. We're all about identity authentication. We basically built something called Sign In with ID because during the pandemic in particular, we noticed a lot of our friends and family either getting locked out of accounts as they were trying to do very simple tasks like reset their passwords, things like that. Other friends and family who were completely locked out, had their identity stolen, even up to the Microsoft level, and were told by Microsoft, hey, it's going to take 7 to 14 days to be able to get your account back up and running because the Authenticator app we created and had you download failed. So we looked at all those different issues and said, hey, let's look at a world where people are moving away from all these other bells and whistles, away from passwords to be able to authenticate people more easily. I'm going to be a little bit customer support focused as I have been for the rest of the panel, just because we think for this vertical in particular, having that individual connection with the person and knowing who they are at the end of the line is really paramount to creating a good customer experience. Just a few things, again, I can reiterate, trusting a password or a device is not the same as knowing its owner. Even when you get to, let's say you have an email account, that email account is not tied to your identity. That's just an email account that lives out there and you happen to know the credentials and hopefully only you know the credentials for that account. Security is hard. There are things like account takeovers because of password failures. We're talking to some cellular companies where they have people calling up all the time saying, hey, I got a new phone, I need to change my SIM. And it's not really that person. How did they figure out who that is? They ask knowledge-based questions. What street did you live on in 2018? And those get really cumbersome. Oh, and by the way, you can probably find that information online. So the knowledge-based questions, things like authenticator apps, we really see as a huge vector for fraud. And the reason there are a lot of issues when people are trying to contact their insurance company, their financial institution, what have you. We've sort of realized over the last 2 years, our customers are anyone who maintains sensitive accounts, important accounts, or accounts, period, that you don't want to be locked out of or have taken over. And just to give you some ideas of where we fit in, we're very much a utility that can be at all these different stages from your customer support, like I mentioned, but also when you're trying to recover your account, open your account, or if you want to go for a method of continuous sign-on. And I'll show you how we can get to the customer in various different flavors. So I'm going to jump over right now into a bit of a live demo. So on the right here, I'm going to go to this URL, and this is a site we created called House Tonight. And House Tonight is a luxury rental company where you can go and last minute get a great sort of Airbnb, but they have some parameters. They want to make sure you're of age, that you're from where you say you are, that you're a real individual. On the left, you see my phone, and this is my actual phone. It's live right now on my desk. We tie back the individual to a government issued ID. So we're not doing facial recognition. We're not tracking people in that weird way. What we're going to do is take a picture of your ID or have you take a picture of your ID with your phone, take a selfie, and then we're going to cross-reference those to do a face match. And if we can tell that that's the same person and all that information syncs up, we're going to save that on the secure enclave of the phone so that that phone becomes an access key to be able to revisit that account or recover at a later date. So I'm going to show you something really cool. Now, this is how we do it with a QR code. You can get this link via text. You can get it via email, any way that the customer service person wants to reach out. But this is for a company that wants to put it on their browser. So I bring up my camera, I see the QR code. I'm just going to scan it there. And what happens is that we've triggered what's called an Apple app clip. This is not a full app. So if I was already in my, let's say, Liberty Mutual Insurance app, and they wanted to validate my identity, this card would just lay over the existing app. So there are a lot of ways to get to someone. But again, I don't have to download a full app. So I'm going to go ahead and open it here. And it's going to ask me, hey, House Tonight wants to confirm your identity. They want to scan your ID and have you add a photo of yourself. So I'm going to allow account access. There's my ID, should be able to see it on my phone. And right now we're going to scan that ID and then scan the back of it and read that barcode. And then I took a selfie. Now we're capturing all that information that's in the barcode and we're gonna match all that up. You can see it's approved on the left on my phone, and I'm given the option to consent to share this data with House Tonight. Again, this could be for any sort of company. And I'm gonna go ahead and sign in here. On the left, you see I'm signed in. On the right, you see they've matched up my face, created an account for me, and I'm in the system. This works on the second time as well. So I can go ahead and close out House Tonight. I can close out this incognito frame. And if I want to create a new one, let's get rid of that. Go to try name tag. And I go to sign in again on the second time. What we're going to see is that on the secure enclave of my device, we actually have that information saved in there. So the second time when I go to sign in, all my information's already there. It's saved on my phone. There are a ton of use cases for this. We really think it's a great tool. We fit in, again, at account recovery, sign on, even account closure, upgrading my account, but there's no passwords, there's no app. You're authenticating someone based on their identity, and you can basically add whatever descriptors you want to be able to confirm that that person is who they say they are. And that's it.
Leonard, thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation and demo as well. Again, you're a man after my own heart. I hate passwords. So unfortunately, we are out of time and cannot do questions, but please, again, if you weren't able to respond to the polls, I think there's an MPS one up right now, but if you weren't able to respond to the polls, please reach out to my email and I can connect you with Leonard here or Noel or Arvin. And yeah, we really appreciate having you guys all here today. If you wouldn't mind, please answer the MPS poll on the right there. It really helps. Would love to hear any improvements you guys have to make. And again, thank you for coming. All right, bye now.